Good evening. You're listening to Ripon Common Sense Radio. Thanks for joining us live. The broadcast will begin in just a few moments. If you are listening on YouTube, please say hello in the chat or the video comments below. The program will begin shortly.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt sign.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Common Sense Council for Monday, October 25th, 2021. I'm your host, AJ, the Ripon Rabbit. Give yourselves a round of applause for being smart enough to be here. Oh my goodness, are we ready for another Common Council broadcast tonight? I know I am. I can tell you this much, amongst all of the technological issues that we've been having recently, we've been able to bring this broadcast to you every fourth Monday and every second Tuesday of the month. And the rabbit hole on this session goes deep tonight, and we'll get through it together. But first, my top hat's off to all of you. Nobody gets the first right in this room when it comes to Common Sense Council. So I will welcome all of you exclusively the same. JJ, great to see you. Woohoo! Raider champion in the house tonight with My Life DIY. Go-Kart Bob. Go-Kart, I really enjoy seeing your name pop into the chat room. I don't know what it is, but I love the name Go-Kart Bob. Now YouTube won't let you comment on someone's channels unless you're subbed. Oh, my goodness. Is that the same for chat? I don't know. Hello, My Life DIY. I know I doubled you just now because I meant to say hello, Sandy B. Great to see you all the way up there at the top. Michael Fontaine and Allison Briscoe asks, what is this council you speak of? I can tell you, this is the council of Ripon Common Council, what we call the Common Sense Council. And if this is your first time joining us for this broadcast, we do this the fourth Monday and the second Tuesday of every month because that is the schedule for Ripon Common Council meetings in Ripon, Wisconsin. And if you paid attention, this story is really gaining traction, not just amongst the locals, but of course for all of you. And the reason why we decided to add this to the lineup is because Ripon is not unlike your community. In fact, Ripon is a very small, central located Wisconsin town with a population of less than 8,000. And some of the challenges that the community and Ripon is faced with today are not unlike challenges that are faced in almost every community today, including my own, where I'm currently at in Henderson, Wisconsin. Now, I was born and raised in Ripon. I left Ripon for Las Vegas to set the world on fire, and here I am in Henderson tonight, setting the world on fire. Of course, Ripon Common Sense and the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network and our website is a 100% community-generated press. And apparently that confuses people, especially when we shine the spotlight on Ripon, Wisconsin, the worldwide spotlight on Ripon, Wisconsin, to be exact. Nevertheless, it wouldn't be the first time that the world's spotlight has been on Ripon. In fact, Ripon has been a major part of history long before I was ever born and long before any of you were too, as Ripon, Wisconsin is the birthplace of the Republican Party. Now, it doesn't make any difference today to Ripon Common Sense. If you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, if you're a Libertarian, if you're an independent, it should make no difference what your political stance is, because our platform has come together for one reason and one reason only, and that is to celebrate the freedoms that we all share. Not just here in this country, but worldwide, as we are listened to in more than 29 countries worldwide on our radio. And of course, YouTube is our simulcast. And if you think of YouTube as a sector of the pie of people listening, it's very small in comparison to how this program is viewed across the world. The reason why we use YouTube is because it gives us that live ability to chat and for me to say, hello, Saturn Sun, great to see you, Tom Budis, and be interactive in these moments. And that's why we simulcast on YouTube. And in the event that anything should ever happen to our YouTube channel, keep in mind, we're not going anywhere. In fact, you can always tune into the radio broadcast. In fact, years ago when YouTube started messing with us in the very beginning, we decided, hey, we better put our own chat together. We better put our own method of broadcast together. And hence, Ripon Common Sense and Ripon Rabbit Hole was born. So if for any reason, because of some of the things that may be said in our broadcasts, if for any reason we're no longer here and you can't find us on YouTube, you can always find us over at riponrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. That is 100% a community-based press. It's a community-generated press. And for those of you in Ripon who have kind of questioned that and didn't really understand what that meant, I'm going to go to the About Us section of the website, and I'm going to read it for you. It's real simple. Ripon Rabbit Hole and Ripon Common Sense is a grassroots, community-generated and driven press. We accept featured news, editorials, stories, videos, images, humor, trivia, and many other interesting submissions from a variety of topics locally, throughout the state, nationally, and internationally. All submissions are peer-reviewed by an editor for publication, and this platform serves almost anyone in the community willing to participate in any capacity. From comments and reactions to news publication, your voices are important to us and can be heard not just in Ripon, but worldwide. 29 countries worldwide, to be exact. And we believe this community of content creators each has their own unique style, opinion, narrative, or insight to offer the collective conversations like we're doing right now. And we gladly and humbly welcome you to participate. And it's very easy to do. Once you sign up for your Backstage VIP pass, you'll be given unlimited access to our privatized social media network that we call Down the Rabbit Hole, where there you can find your own profile. You can set up and join and post to our wall without the fear of censorship, without the fear of being shadow banned, for instance, and you can literally create your own groups as well over there, which we have done more recently for our Freedom Rally broadcasts. But we have a Be Well group that looks like it just actually appeared, which I am interested to look into. We have Tuesday night videos hosted by Raider Champion. We have Juanito 1975 in the 3D animation group. And of course, our Rally for Freedom group, which has been really a hot topic most recently with what's been taking place over at JM Smucker & Co. Nevertheless, I can tell you, this show is designed to follow the local city council and what decisions are being made locally in the little town of Ripon, Wisconsin. And if you have been paying attention, you know that several Ripon Rabbits community members on the ground there in Ripon have been showing up to ask some very important questions. So let me bring up the article that we posted regarding the last broadcast. Of course, the topic that we chose to recap that meeting on was to mask or not to mask, and that is the question. I can tell you, members of the community returned Tuesday, October 12th, to the 2021 council meeting aimed at challenging the approved face covering policy for all city buildings and facilities, which simply reads, members of the public are allowed again to enter the building maskless per their exemption because their policy didn't work. They had no way of actually enforcing it. So people have actually been challenging this since September 27th. The policy went into place September 14th. And our local Ripon Rabbit, Rob Wichow, during a September 14th meeting, when the policy was approved, he says, and he asks last time during his time at the microphone, all the body had zero consideration for absolutely no discussion regarding the general public. And Rob is right. It's we the people, not we the government. And to summarize, at the end of the meeting, the one council member who's seated to the right here in the photo on your screen now, is John Split. And as we watched the meeting come to an end last time, this is like reality television for city council. And this is fun because you can pay attention to your own city council agendas that take place in your own backyard. Simply, and I'm going to show you how we do it in Ripon, and it's not unlike your own city website. But we watched the one and only council member and alderman, John Split, who voted against this policy to begin with, which failed. I'm sorry to not go through, and actually successfully went through 7-1, meaning 7 of the Ripon Council members actually voted to put this mandate in place. Even though Wisconsin has 0 mandate regarding this, they decided upon themselves to make a policy that says you have to mask up if you're going to come to these meetings. And of course, that's how it all began. But nevertheless, John Splitt, after the members of the community had actually spoke to the city council, he asked, I was wondering if anybody feels that we should have a discussion item of the face covering policy. And if we did break any open meeting laws, or if we did, what are our arrangements? Probably a question for Ludd. Ludd is the city attorney and has been for some time for the city of Ripon, handles all of the legal affairs. And he replied, certainly you can vote tonight to put it on. I didn't want to cut you short, but I did want an opportunity to kind of go through it again and see what some of these questions were. I haven't seen all the questions that were at the last meeting, so I want to look at the questions from the public and see if there's any that actually need to be addressed in a forum like the full council. Those were his words on October 12th, which was 11 days ago. Not feeling confident in that response, quite honestly. So although no open discussion or action item regarding the policy has been placed on the next agenda for the regular meeting scheduled 4th Monday of this month, there seems to be an expectation that the council will have some answers to the public's questions after Wirtz has reviewed them. And perhaps we're going to get those answers tonight, as the agenda has been posted publicly, as it should be, for October 25th. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. All right. Now, put a 1 in the chat room if you're as interested in this as I am. Of course, we have public communications. Let's just double check and make sure that we don't have a preview stream here. It's anybody's guess if we're going to get a live view from Ripon inside the chamber tonight. That is anyone's guess. But I can tell you, in less than 10 minutes, it is expected to be live. And I am getting a word that Rob is in the chat room. So we are going to go over to our website, Ripon Rabbit Hole. We're going to leave this page. We're going to go to the Backstage 24/7 Lounge, which is available for you once you've signed up for your Backstage pass. And then we're going to enter in, and we're going to see if anyone is actually there. And hi, everybody. It's AJ, the Ripon Rabbit. Let's go ahead and join the meeting. Let's get an audio feed going to the room. All right, let's go ahead and pull that audio into the room. I'm going to stay cammed down for the moment so we can see. I have a guest in there, but I don't see Rob. So let's get Rob on the phone quick just to make sure we're coordinating with him. My Life with a 1, Dark Wolf's Den Show with a 1, Allison Briscoe with a 1, and Jerry Hicks, by the way, normally is here. Hi, Rob. How are you?
Good.
Are you?
Technical difficulties.
Are you in the VIP lounge, or are you in the backstage?
Backstage.
Okay, let's head there. Hold on. Let's see if we can connect with Rob in the Backstage studio. As we travel on over there, let's see. Nope, you're not in the Backstage. You're in the VIP, I think. Are you in there as guest, by the way?
Yeah, I guess so. Should I sign in?
No, you don't have to do that. Just, I don't see a picture from you, and I don't hear you. So we do have JoJo's in the Backstage as well.
Should I log in?
Well, no, you don't have to log in. Can you see and hear us right now back there?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. We just don't see your camera. It's a black camera and we don't hear anything from you. Let's.
I can see my face right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, we cannot see or hear you coming in. Let's.
Can you hear Orlando talk?
No.
Do you hear me, AJ?
I hear you on the phone. I don't hear you in the backstage. So maybe, Orlando, if you could come in to the VIP lounge like you have done before, like you did.
He doesn't have his phone, I think.
Oh, you don't have your phone. Okay.
Why didn't I log in?
It shouldn't matter if you're logged in or not. We see your square. We just don't get a picture from you, and we don't get any sound from you. So maybe try to go out and close everything down and come in again. And it could be the fact that we're on the phone right now too, which is preventing it. So I'm going to hang up with you and let you try to refresh that page and enter again, and we'll see if we can connect with you and get a bird's eye view inside the room. How does that sound?
Sure.
Awesome. That was Rob, Ripon Rabbit Rob Wichow, who is trying to bring us a live feed just in case we don't get a live feed from the Ripon. So I read you. Let's get back because we only have a few moments here before this thing is going to hopefully fire off here. So lo and behold, there's an action item number 4 tonight, which is an amendment to the face covering policy, which says, staff note, after staff review, there is some recommendation to amend the face covering policy that was approved on September 14th. The amendment removes the face covering requirement for the public in the city buildings and establishes a recommendation. Woohoo, right? You would think. But don't get too excited just yet. All right, because these are the reasons why we do these shows. I want you to pay close attention to what happens to this agenda. All right, let's check in on Rob. Still a black picture from Rob. We don't have anything, but let's go back to the agenda. So we're going to face covering policy, which has now been attached to this 43-page document, all the way down the rabbit hole to the very bottom of the page, bottom of the agenda, published Thursday, by the way. I believe it was either Thursday night or Friday morning. Either way, they have an open meeting law obligation to make sure that this is published before the meeting, like 24 hours before the meeting. You can see it right here, plain as day, that somehow the scientists of the city of Ripon have figured out an amazing way to time travel, folks. I don't know how they do it, but I want to know the secret, because this is better than Doc and Michael Keaton and Back to the Future, right? COVID-19 face coverings policy, City of Ripon, which was approved 9/14/21, and it was amended 10/25/21. Now, this, like I said, this document was published either Thursday night or Friday morning on the City of Ripon website. So that was a few days ago. And already they somehow magically had time traveled to the future and then came back to where we are right now with an amended policy, which means that the full council has agreed to this and voted on this tonight publicly. What we're about to witness in just a few moments when it goes live is going to take place. And of course, it's going to be amended, probably by a unanimous vote, although the time travelers did not reveal that. But nevertheless, we have a copy of the COVID-19 face covering policy published last Thursday night or Friday morning for the public's perusal, amended October 25th, 2021. How is that for time travel, right? And what do they say in their amendment? What did they all vote on unanimously tonight? They voted that members of the public are strongly encouraged to wear face coverings while in the city-owned buildings and facilities and when interacting with the city staff. How about that, folks? What do you think of the technology that they're using? I don't know what kind of technology they exactly are using, because it's not the same technology that brings us live city council meetings just yet, which is 2 minutes away from departure. I would hope that we're going to see a live stream popped on here, especially when we don't seem to have any trouble streaming. A week ago, the high school football versus Sheboygan Falls streamed a week ago. The high school volleyball versus Waupun. The council meeting was indeed streamed last time, second Tuesday of the month, and they were able to stream the fire district, and again, more football for both the college and whatnot. But I can tell you that the council meeting before that was not streamed. Okay, it was published the next day, the 27th meeting, where the Ripon Rabbits stood up and addressed the council. That was published the next day. It wasn't streamed live. Not like the sports events that the city, and if you want to learn more about how the city gets their funds for this kind of media, for us to see these council meetings, you can watch this Ripon Community Media Committee, which was actually streamed on 10/18 of this month. They managed to stream that one where they talk about their budget and the way that they use their funds and their concerns over not having enough battery power to cover some of these live sports games. But nevertheless, we should be seeing a live view. And I don't see a live view coming up just yet. And I see Flippin' Rob in the backstage, but unfortunately, I do not see his camera or hear his audio from the backstage either. So again, Rob, if you can hear me, we cannot hear or see you, which I truly hope we can do. If we cannot get that view in the room that the city receives funds to bring us live. And of course, those funds seem to work. The streaming technology seems to work because the high school games work just fine. But it's anyone's guess tonight on who's going to push the button. If the button's going to be pushed, it's very possible that we may never see the videoed version of tonight's meeting, especially that we may not see it live. So that's how time flies. Here we go. We got it, folks. We got a live stream. There it is, right there. We are live with the Common Council. We are going to see what takes place in the room tonight. This is going to be exciting. I am excited. We do not need the pinhole cameras inside. I am going to adjust your screen and make sure that you guys have a full good view for tonight's broadcast. And once the agenda begins, the council meeting will be underway, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But again, just so that you understand, there is an agenda that they're going to follow tonight, and that agenda includes a invocation, a prayer that is said, along with a roll call, approval of tonight's agenda, and it's going to roll right into the public comments section and communications, where those citizens have been utilizing their 5 minutes of free speech time to address, and then we're going to hear some action over the open container, and then we're going to discuss some billing and collection services things. Then there's going to be a fleet management program discussed, and then amendment to the face covering policy will occur. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how tonight plays out. Does any of you have any questions? Oh, let's save the questions till later. Let's listen in and see.
Time is 7:01. I will call the meeting to order. Could I have roll call, please?
Mr. Schrader.
Here.
Mrs. Stotzinger.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Gallus.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Mr. Gotsky.
Here.
Mr. Wirch. Mr. Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am Reverend Jeffrey Dodson from First Congregational Church of Ripon. Please be with me in the spirit of prayer this evening. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this time together, for our city council members and our public servants. We ask your blessing upon all those who serve and have a heart for taking care of this community. I ask that you grant us time tonight so that we may ask good questions. We may be in the spirit of learning and of cooperation and civility. Bless us in all that we do tonight here in this meeting and for the work that we do on behalf of the great citizens of Ripon, Wisconsin. I pray this in your holy and gracious name. Amen.
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 All right, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Been moved by David, seconded by Paige. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving into public comment. This is the opportunity for citizens to come before the council with comments and concerns on any current city issues, knowing no action will be taken tonight. I ask that you keep it civil and respectful and within 5 minutes. However, discussion of personnel or of individual members of the Common Council shall not be permitted. I expect you to be respectful, and in return, I expect the council to treat the citizens with the same respect. Before you begin, please state your name and address for the record.
Of course, you have to be respectful when
First,
you
we
attend
have
these.
Timothy. I'm not going to pronounce your last name right, so if you please step forward, state your name
He
and
can't
address. for the
pronounce anybody's name right, but to be fair, I can't pronounce Timothy's name right either.
I do have a copy of what I'm going to say tonight if anybody would like to follow along. Reset, start. I want to start by thanking the mayor, the common council members for your time and efforts to sit in these duly elected positions on behalf of the residents of the city of Ripon. My name is Timothy Bachleitner, N7612, County Road E, Ripon, Wisconsin, 54971. I am a servant of God, the husband of one, father of 9, and I fear no man. I stand here unmasked, unvaccinated, and unashamed. I am here without exemption, yet with great expectation that the place I now occupy holds the same power the founders of this nation, this state, this county, and this city knew it held. I stand as a citizen concerned about the condition of my community magistrates and the decisions they are making. In an editorial piece located in the Ripon Commonwealth summarizing a meeting held here September 14th, a question was posed. When the story is written of Ripon in the pandemic, who will historians regard as the leaders of September 14th, 2021? This happened to just be a rhetorical question, as a foregone conclusion had already been decided. The author answered that question for us. The title of the article read, "Ripon Mayor Ted Grant is a leader offering one way out of this perpetual hell." So Mayor Ted Grant, you are that leader, likened to Churchill, Roosevelt, Gandhi, Lincoln, King, and even a carpenter from Nazareth. Yes, the Son of God. Now, Mayor, I can't see under your mask, but are you blushing? I hope, Mayor, you do not let this go to your head, or the others here who find yourselves in agreement with him. And for the others who do not see things the way the author of the letter, or Ted Grant, does, the article has a not-so-subtle jab for you. Who are you to be likened to? I guess we can just take the lowest of all historical leaders, and even the snake in the garden, Satan himself, yes, the liar, the thief, the destroyer of mankind. So in response, I now submit a counter comparison. 1 year ago, I preached a sermon titled Hitler's Favorite Bible Verse, Romans chapter 13. Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there's no authority except from God. The authority that exists are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God. And those who resist it will bring judgment on themselves. Can you see why it was Hitler's favorite Bible verse? Hitler would crush dialogue and dissent by mandate. He would seek to use ministers, the media, the medical community, and the magistrates. Hitler needed the ministers, for they held the spirit of the people. He needed the medical industry, for they controlled the body. He needed the media, for they shaped the mind, and Hitler knew he needed the magistrates, for they held the very soul of the people. How do I see history looking back on Ripon? Ripon's ministers are either pushing statist propaganda or silently sitting back, nowhere to be found. The medical community has traded nitty-gritty biological science for cheap and easy political science. The media is so desperate they're making a religion out of this, bringing Gandhi and Jesus into it, attempting to scare us with terminology of everlasting torment. And now here I stand before the magistrates. I guess only time will tell whether you think for yourselves, whether you do independent research, and whether you have the courage to stand against tyranny. Now please, do not misquote me. The author of that editorial surely did not call Ted Grant Jesus Christ. And I am not calling anyone Hitler. We have only noticed patterns and similarities that we draw to your attention. So what do we do now as the Commonwealth of Ripon? How do we go forward? Well, the American experiment is still the solution. We have all clearly spelled out duties and limitations. The system has been set up with enough checks and balances to right every wrong. The system has spread out the power so that the only way to be entirely overcome by tyranny is for good men to do nothing. I think an actual quote from Jesus might be fitting at this time. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Some may call me a conspiracy theorist or an insurrectionist, or like moms across America now concerned with their children's education, I may be labeled a domestic terrorist, but I encourage the magistrates here today. The duly elected, those who swore an oath to the Constitution, represent the best interest of the people within, and I emphasize within, the authority granted to you. Look not to the interests of your own reputation or the interests of the local media or the interests of the corporate medical system. When it comes to religion, remember they executed an innocent man on a cross for the crime of insurrection. And all he did was expose their wickedness and tell the truth. Do not just make half-hearted amendments to the mask mandate tonight, but completely abolish it. Get rid of this entire mandate and every other unjust overreach of your... Oh, okay, thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you. Next is Orlando, is it Nieves? I apologize if I pronounced that wrong.
Yes, Orlando Neves, 827 Washington Street for Christian International Intelligence Report. We had some questions the last times we appeared here, and I can see it says here that you're going to be discussing this today on the agenda number 4. There was a staff review, and we will want to know when was this review done, and we will want to then hear the policies you're going to be amending for the public today. So basically, we will just be hearing these questions and answers and the policies that you're going to be presenting today, number 4. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. And last, Rob Wichow.
How you guys doing tonight? Once again, as always, I always appreciate what you guys do. My name is Rob Wichow, 223 Union Street. Now I'm just wondering, is tonight's feed live? Does anybody know for sure? Can't even get an answer on that. Awesome. Such transparency I can see already. And I'm smelling something right now. Last times I've come in here, I've been cordial and I've been nice and I'm going to be respectful, but something stinks. And I can smell it over here, outside, everywhere. If you guys are talking about complete transparency, then why weren't the minutes released until Friday? And was there a magic act or trick that was done? Because when you guys had your meeting on the 14th about this mask mandate, and it was presented in such a vague fashion that there was no discussion to be heard from the people because it was put on at the last minute. And now once again, you guys have released a mandate again, or excuse me, amendment to said mandate as of Friday, whereas last I heard from the last meeting, Ludd was going to meet with the administrator, confer whether subject matters and questions at hand that weren't heard because the lawyer wasn't here was going to be then discussed to see if it warranted a forum. So as of tonight, we should have been hearing those results to see if we're going to proceed further. But now an amendment to the agenda, it sounds like you guys are going to do away with it as far as public. But what about the city employees? Once again, it's vague. But how did you guys come to have this in the agenda for tonight's meeting? What is the process? I thought the people should be informed and aware at all times of what is going on with the council. So is this behind closed doors? And it sounds with the agenda, the way you guys got it written out, you guys are ready to vote on it. So how can you guys vote on something when there isn't going to be time for the public to prepare to have an open discussion, to be heard before you vote on it? Something really stinks. And as my predecessor has spoke before me, I'm also asking for you guys, okay, if you guys are not going to enforce it, and you guys are going to do with the public not having to comply even under exemptions, then why have it on the books? Get rid of it. Or are you guys staging for a vaccination for your city employees down the road? And do we need to start following the money? And what are you guys going to get out of it? Because we're already following the money on the school board level. And the things we're finding out, what money can do to a community and an individual is horrific. Just to follow mask mandates by the CDC, that's what's making us force our kids to wear masks. And now you guys sit here tonight all masked up, but then when I see you guys out in public, since you guys are all about this mask, I don't see you practicing what you're preaching. But it looks good when you guys are all here respecting each other, and I've heard that word, respect. One about respecting us. And last year, I seem to remember, it started at a state level. Then it went to a county. And then it went to the city. And once again, it was a mandate and recommendation, not an ordinance, not a law. But somehow or another, city of Ripon, all by themselves, decides to implement a mask mandate. Why? And what is your research? We already have proven that it's false data. So why are you guys in such high britches to forego new research about masks? And we can argue back and forth all day long whether mask is good, whether mask is bad. We can keep coming back every 2 weeks to discuss that. You get your sources, I got mine. But either way, it comes down to policing yourself. And I'm not going to comply anymore with you guys until we verify. And that's our God-given right, and that's what we should be doing, and I'm questioning this government. And I'm questioning this panel. Good for thee, but not for me, man, is the mentality that I'm seeing. And if you guys can sit up here on this soapbox and try to instill something upon the public and its workers, why aren't you guys practicing what you preach? Good night.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our action items. First item on the agenda today is an outdoor open container entertainment event permit application. This is put forth by Ripon Main Street for their downtown Ripon wine walk on November 5th. Would
I make a
anyone like?
motion to approve it?
Thank
I
you.
will second.
Moved by Howard, seconded by Page. Any discussion, or would anyone like to hear from Craig from Ripon Main Street before we move on?
The application was very explicit. I would ask if our police chief approves. As I understand it, staff approved.
He is nodding yes.
Thank you, Bill.
All right,
I only
so
have one
wow.
suggestion that I'd like
I'm
to
going to
make.
come in here just for a moment before we move through the agenda, because right now what we have just witnessed was the public communications and comment of the Ripon Council meeting live. It was absolutely unbelievable how Timothy Backliner used his 5 minutes. I'm emotionally moved. Put a 1 in the chat room if you are too, because I got to say, what I heard tonight was powerful stuff said before these people. I mean, powerful stuff. And of course, these members of the city council are going to address what was just said in amendment number 4, item number 4, which we're going to hear how it is addressed and what is actually said. I just wanted to come in and bring us up to date as to what's happening.
Main Street, in this case, or the person applying for the permit assumes liability anyways, I think it would be fine the way it is written.
Yeah.
Craig, how many tickets sold?
400. Wow.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll just add that I think Mayor, it seems like a good suggestion. Obviously, it's on Craig and Main Street, and if it doesn't go well, I would assume that he probably already has some volunteers. I know there's a lot of people that do volunteer with downtown, and so I think that the more people volunteer and welcome people to our city and make great events, I think Craig knows that that's a good thing, and so I just want to echo that. I think it's a good thing that you voice. And I think also probably Craig understands that getting people involved, which he's always done from what I've seen, I think he'll do again.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I guess we didn't formally ask. You said if one of us wants Craig, does that mean that it's up to us to, do I need to formally ask Craig, is there anything more you'd like to add? Is that appropriate then to?
If you'd like to hear more from him, he's on hand. Sorry, Craig.
Okay. Craig T-Bond, 567 Watson Street, Executive Director of Ripon Main Street. Typically, we're scaling this wine walk back to 400 participants. In the past, we've had 550 plus or minus. We've never had security, so this time we've requested 4 officers from Fond du Lac County. It's easier to get officers than it is to get volunteers. So we can put out a request for volunteers and see if anybody has an interest. But we're already doing more than we've done for anything else before.
Anyone else with questions or comments? Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
One last time, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this outdoor open container entertainment event permit, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Moving on to our next item, which is the EMS billing and collection services. Mitch, would you like to give a synopsis on this, please?
Everybody's taller than me here. Good evening. So I just kind of want to start by recapping about August, actually the 1st of August. You, council, had approved us to contract with Dan Williams of Strategic EMS Consulting. The reason that we brought that to council and that we decided to partner with him and that company is that with all the changes, specifically dispatch at that time, it kind of brought to the forefront some changes that needed to be made in our operations. Planning for the future, planning for eventually the possibility of full-time staff, that kind of thing. What Dan and I have been working on to start with, though, we had an audit looming from Medicare. And as we dug into that, we found that there were a lot of discrepancies in the way we were billing. Now, already I knew some of those discrepancies existed, but as we got deeper into that, we kind of found out that we've, and again, by nobody's fault. There's not one person that you could place fault on for this. It's just that we didn't know, we hadn't invested the time, the money, the effort into doing this correctly. So needless to say, we had been doing some things incorrectly for some time. And currently, Dan is still, he kind of took that audit and ran with it. He's currently typing a cover letter for each individual call that we were audited, that the auditors requested, explaining circumstances. Him and I went through all those calls, and we determined where we were incorrect, where we billed incorrectly, and now we're going to send all that packet that should be going out in a week or two to the Medicare, to the company that Medicare has identified to do this audit, and we'll see how that goes. There's a chance that we could owe some money, but there's also a chance that we had an opportunity to recode some of those, and there's a good chance that it might not be as bad as we initially thought. That brings me to tonight. Through all that, we, like I said, we had identified a lot of shortcomings. We contacted LifeQuest Billing, which is out of Watoma, and they do billing for a large number of agencies around the state. And through talks with them, we determined that it was going to be much more, we were going to be in a better spot to do billing with them. What I mean by that is that time-wise, my time, a lot of it is spent on billing, and I'd say a good portion of the week, either I'm actually getting it ready for Karen, who works over in City Hall, or I'm going through reports, correcting things, sending it back to crew members to correct things so we can get it billed correctly. With LifeQuest, that'll take that burden off of me and give me time to do things operationally that I feel my time would be way better invested, or better spent doing those kind of things. Adam, do you have anything that you want to add at this point as far as the contract goes?
So just generally speaking, I think when we contracted with Dan, we were kind of, instead of just one final report saying here are all the things that we want to bring forward and change, it was going to be make changes as we go. This is one of the first things that was identified as a weakness in the operation, billing. This has come up in our financial audit year after year. Just last month or last meeting, the council approved a resolution waiving $34,000 in ambulance bills. So what can we do to ensure that we are doing everything we can to make sure we're doing things correctly, we're going after every penny, so on and so forth. And under the current situation with call volume and the complexity of many of the bills and Medicare, and just the diverse number of agencies and insurance companies that we have to deal with internally, with one staff member who has basically half of her time dedicated to this. So we are doing billing for 1,000 calls a year with essentially half of an employee and then part of Mitch's time. It is likely a multiple person job.
And we're looking at 1,700 calls,
Yep.
actually. So we're closer to 2,000. No, that's okay. That number,
that number is growing. We've talked about this. We haven't invested in training that would be adequate to continue to operate this. And so this was the first main thing that came about. Nobody has done anything wrong. This has just gotten to the point where it is overwhelming. It's been called out by our financial auditors for many years in a row. We need to solidify this practice, and this billing company has significant experience and client list very long. to handle these types of services, and clearly they have a charge at the end of what they collect per call, but they also do, I think, a far better job of getting every penny, where currently we are waiving off a lot. So that's why it's here tonight. Mitch, you can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to take questions, but something to add to that, our current, just to give you a real down and dirty of our current collections process, he's right there. And Lud, I mean, after we try to, after we deem, it's not collectible, we do get, they do get in a letter from Attorney Wirtz. However, the cost to take them to small claims for oftentimes, it's just too great, and we just can't do that. So what's unique about LifeQuest is that they have their own in-house collection agency. It's not outsourced. Everything is right there. They only do EMS and healthcare billing as well. It's mainly EMS. They have a few, I guess, nursing home, things like that. They do some billing for it, but that is their primary. All of their staff most of their staff, I should say, are former paramedics, EMTs who know the system, know how things work. So just to collect, on bills that we're currently writing off, and is going to make a huge difference. Also, through working with Dan, we have identified on our end how we need to write reports, how we need to, I can't tell my people how to write a report. That's illegal. To tell them you need to write it just this way to get paid. The state doesn't. It says no. They say no. But we have, given them education. Dan has held 3 nights of training already with us, as well as LifeQuest will come if we do get approval tonight, and do another in-depth training with us for documentation. So already we've begun to fix some of the problems. I guess I'll take any questions if there are any.
Yeah. The time that is currently being spent by an employee of the city in this building, will that employee's time then be repurposed somewhere else in the organization?
Yes, that is correct. So there will be, Karen, I've talked to her. She's been in on the meetings with LifeQuest because obviously this impacts her current role within the organization. There's no plan to take her down to lower hours or anything. We have work that can be done within ambulance as a liaison with the billing company, as well as taking on additional duties within the ambulance, whether it be scheduling or other assistance for Mitch. And then, quite frankly, there are a multitude of other things within the utility and or general fund that she can be assigned to take on. There's always things to do, and I think this particular piece, even though there's a billing company, there will be still work to do because we are just getting big for an operation.
Thank you.
And Al, to add to that too, everything that we bill up until January 1st is kind of the tentative date. She'll be, to be honest, there'll be 18 months will pass, and she'll probably still be dealing with things that are outstanding. We have people that are on payment plans. We'll continue to collect those. Those won't get shifted over to LifeQuest. So there are a lot of things that in her normal daily routine that she'll continue to do for some time after the transition.
Thank you. I'm familiar with Medicare. And the ever-changing environment that they operate in.
It's truly joyful.
Which directly translates to providers. So I fully recommend this proposal.
And just for clarification, revisionist history is one thing. Obviously, I have no objection to LifeQuest. The effort, the time put in by the city to attempt to collect was reasonable for the opportunities that we were given. And there are some of these monies that are simply not collectible. So the idea that LifeQuest is going to magically change the world of collection is not the case. They will have the opportunity to react quicker than the city where there's opportunity, and they know the field better, as Al has just pointed out, than our current staffing because of training and education. So there will be some areas where they're going to be able to produce income for the city. In terms of what they ultimately do on the back end, where there's costs that we charge for that insurance companies don't pay, will be interesting to see. That is the one question I have not received an answer to in terms of the 22% that we're going to pay. I would want the motion to include the opportunity, and I've reached out to individual I've not talked to yet, to clarify what the backside issue is. At the front end, it's going to help without question or doubt and tighten up what's on the bill so that we can collect it and make sure it fits in the boxes of Medicare insurance or whoever is going to pay that bill initially. So there is an advantage, huge advantage, to enter into this. I would just ask that we cover it with, I just want to speak to the manager on the backside process.
Right, and yeah, and we're still going to come to you with write-offs to approve because, of course, Medicare, we only get X amount of dollars. About the max, really, that we get for any call, even a very serious call where we do a whole bunch of stuff, is about $488, and we could bill well over $2,000, $2,700. That is the base rate, plus some mileage, but that doesn't add up to a whole lot, so.
Thank you, I just want that recognized by the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of money that we can't get.
Exactly,
We
yeah.
do the surface, we bill it, there's money that can't be retrieved.
Right. When we agree.
LifeQuest knows how to get in and get at it and get it done. I'm 100% behind this, just for the clarification on the backside. What are we getting for the increased percentage? Thank you.
Thank you.
David?
Did you look at any other companies besides LifeQuest, and are there any other companies that do this?
There are. I did not get an actual proposal from any other companies. The reason being, one, is that we were able to negotiate the 6.5% rate with LifeQuest, which is pretty much the lowest that you're going to find. That's kind of actually a rate where they do some billing for like Omaha, Nebraska. Those are the rates that they give these larger, and of course, to get us in, we were able to negotiate that lower rate. It's local. I know, again, the owners of LifeQuest have a impeccable resume, and they work local. Like Tim, the manager who we're dealing with, used to be the chief of Washara County EMS. So they're local. Our residents realize that. They have, as far as customer service, they have more available hours. You can call them in the middle of the night and they have somebody there. The other billing companies, there's one out of Eau Claire, doesn't come close with customer service. And to get things billed, to get bills out the door within 24 to 36 hours, to have that customer service, to accept credit cards over the phone. These people, they get their bill, they can pay immediately. And these are just a few of the things that was the reason that we went with LifeQuest instead of looking at those others.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you say local, it looks like here on the proposal, it's right over in Watoma.
It is, yes. And that is where they have a few offices throughout the United States. They are very proud of the fact they service some services in Guam. That's why they have nighttime hours. But that's where it all started, is Watoma. So Tim actually has been here physically 3 times already. I can call him. It doesn't sound like Lud is having the best luck getting a hold of him, but I can, we'll get there. But he can call him and he'll come down and he'll make himself available. It's really nice to meet face to face. The other component is the training component, is that they have local individuals who could be here almost any night of the week.
In person.
To do that training, yes.
I like also that it sounds like you have a good relationship with them, and so I think that speaks a lot to, any company when you have a personal relationship with them.
Yeah.
My question is, it sounds like everything that you're presenting is good from the city's perspective as far as helping us to, in many different ways, as you just stated. Would you also state that for the client, for our local citizen being helped, that it if there are, you had mentioned that there are some shortcomings as far as perhaps, things that are coded, not that maybe insurance denies it, if this lessens the number of situations where perhaps it's going back and forth with insurance, would you say that this also is good for our local people and that they might have less back and forth with their insurance?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm one person, Karen's one person, and she's on the phone constantly during the day with insurance companies, back and forth, and oftentimes we get an insurance provider that's, say, from out of state, like a medical assistance, an MA from out of state. There's a huge amount of paperwork involved on our end and information gathering from the patient as well, to get set up in that state, so we're able to bill them. So there are clear advantages. I had mentioned the paying with credit card. They can do that here as well, but a patient can go online. There's an online portal, and once they receive a bill, it'll say we're billing on behalf of Ripon Guardian Ambulance. They have the opportunity to go on and pay their copay with credit card online, just like we do, everything we do now. So that's something that we can't offer here. There would be a huge cost involved there to do that. So just timely processing of claims. Sometimes we will have, we're a week out, right? So every week I get the billing, the front end of it to Karen, and then it gets processed. How long that takes depends on her workload and how busy we were the week before. So people will be getting their bills, 6 months, I shouldn't say 6 months, we don't have 6 months, but 2 months will go by and they have forgotten about it, and all of a sudden they get this bill. Well, it gets, shoved to the side. So they'll be getting bills much quicker, and then the chances that they will pay that bill are a lot greater too, as far as that goes.
Thank you. And last question for
Yeah, sure.
So it sounded like, you were able to negotiate down the percentages. Thank you on behalf of the city. But do we have any assurance for, in future years, if we still, continue with this? I guess, help me, this is just a 1-year proposal, correct? Or moving forward, do we know what the rates may be? Are we assuming this is a multi-year moving forward if this works out well, the relationship?
Well, once we go to LifeQuest, it would be very hard to come back and start doing our own billing. I mean, it's certainly possible, but they are open to negotiate terms. I've spoken with some other services that utilize them, and they have had good luck with keeping their rates reasonable. That's about really all I can say, but I have reached out to other services locally, and they have, they don't come back with 3% increase or anything like that. So they've been real reasonable, and that's about as far as I can speak on that, I think.
Is there a contract, as far as a length of contract on this, or is it?
Yes, so there was a contract. LUD has reviewed it. That's kind of why, and we just didn't distribute that because it's requested. We do not make that overly public because it is a private contract.
Proprietary information.
It's a proprietary, that's what it is. So we're just asking to enter that contract after LUD's review, and
That's the motion we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And I think Mitch did a good job of answering the questions that this is a reputable, recognized organization that does this work exclusively, and it will help the city of Ripon without any question or doubt.
Now, is your software compatible? We're going to be able to send everything directly over there, or?
That's a good question. Actually, I'll keep this real brief, but we currently use what's called ImageTrend Elite, which is a state provided documentation software. It's online. Actually, our documentation is even going to get easier. That's an added benefit for our staff, because we'll have what ImageTrend has is they have ImageTrend Elite Field Bridge, so we can work offline. We don't have to be on a physical computer that's connected to the internet. Our EMTs and paramedics will be able to do their reports on the fly. If they're away from the ambulance Wi-Fi, we'll be able to get signatures on our tough books right on the screens. It'll eliminate a lot of paperwork and that kind of thing. So everything is compatible. It's the same, that is linked to the state, so they can, as soon as I hit a button that it's finished, it goes LifeQuest, but at the same time, it'll go to the state to be entered into the database and then the national database as well.
Good.
Could you tell me what the percent of the write-offs, like of our total that we're writing off every year?
No, and I can't, and it varies. I can tell you that we have this is a approximate, of course. We have about a 70% Medicare, Medicaid payer mix, which means that 70% of our patients either have Medicare or Medicaid. That's kind of high. 65, we do have, but if you take Ripon and look at it, we have quite a few assisted living facilities. We have one nursing home with Spring Pines. So the reason for that is mostly those facilities. So I can't give you that number exactly, but I can tell you that 70% of our calls probably have some sort of write-off involved of the total Medicaid, Medicare. So.
And I will just comment that one of the main reasons the auditing firm has stated year after year is because of the unusually high amount that we do write off and the unpredictability of our collections process. So they're making assumptions within our financial audits based on outstanding bills, based on our processes, and they feel that some of those processes are weak and some of the write-offs are high. Obviously, 34,000. I think the month or 6 months ago was around 18,000 or something that was written off. Many of those claims are obviously out many years, or their people are deceased, but I think generally speaking this addresses those larger concerns that have been identified in the audit.
So we're pretty sure that even with the 6.5% cost to the city, we're going to recoup more than what we're doing.
I can only speak from personal experience in my previous community where we went with LifeQuest and we saw about 20% increase in revenues just by switching and their practices, and then that was offset by a higher than 6.5%. It was higher back then, smaller community, but there's no guarantees. But I think there's a likelihood that we do see an increase in revenues and more predictability in the collection process, which financially is incredibly important as we address some of the additional needs within that department.
Could we track that and get a one-year report, or?
We could. I mean, we could look at our past write-offs, all of that, what we've collected, see what percentage of revenues we're writing off. Quite frankly, it goes year to year, and I think LifeQuest, in terms of their reporting, they have very comprehensive reporting software that does everything from what percentage is written off, what percentage is in stage 1, 2, and 3 of collections that will go to staff, and we will be able to share that information if you would like. To showcase, what stage they're in, how much they're collecting, how much they're unable to collect, far greater than what we are currently capable, I would say, as under our current software and staffing levels.
Okay. And part of what that 6.5%, I mentioned that includes their software as well. That would be, we don't have to use it, and frankly, but I like that software. I've used that in the past, and it's a wonderful tool. But that's something that's kind of a bonus. The other thing is the insurance. It's kind of an insurance policy for us. So that we're being compliant. They know. If we're sending things that don't look right, they'll educate us. We're not just sending off every single bill to Medicare, hoping that we've done the right thing. So that's kind of that second set of eyes on everything before it gets sent off. So I think, and like Adam said, it's hard to, we can't say for sure, but I would say the likelihood that we'll come out ahead is very high.
I'd like to make a motion to preliminarily approve the contract pending the city attorney's review of the contract and consequently discussions with the city attorney and LifeQuest regarding the backside 22% on aged collectibles. Frankly, would like to see this come back for final approval once the city attorney has been able to, one, review the contract, two, we've got a firm response on the backside of the aged receivables.
I will second that.
Any discussion on that motion?
I just wanted to second what John said in that I think it looks like a good idea. And everything you're saying sounds good. Just want to make sure that after like a year, we look at it and make sure that it did make financial sense. That, you know, in whatever financial sense that means, you know, you're able to repurpose your time, be more effective, or that 6.5% is, you know, useful what we're losing. So.
Absolutely, be happy to do that.
And if this is an annual contract, that would be the time for the council to look at any savings, performance, you know, efficiencies, repurposing staff time, whatever it may be, when you would approve a contract in the future, correct?
Correct.
But we don't know if it's an annual contract, right? Because it wasn't stated what the terms of the
Yeah,
contract.
well, I mean, we'll bring it back. I think the motion is to bring it back next meeting. I'll have all my answers by then, so you will have the sense of the length and the renewal and all the rest of it.
Is there any timeliness? I mean, we're good?
That would be the only question back.
No, you know,
As we get it back at the next meeting, you're.
yeah, that'd be fine, because we're looking at the first of the year, and there's some things I can start even beforehand, just collecting data to get to them, so that when we're ready, they have it, and when you say go, then we're set.
All right, so the motion is to preliminarily approve the contract pending his review and to bring it back for final approval at the next meeting.
Yes.
Any discussion on that motion before we vote? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? See you at the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mitch.
All right, let me bring in our guests here. Make sure everything works for him.
Matt, can you hear us?
I can, good evening.
So thanks for waiting, Matt.
Hey, no problem. I have a really nice landscaping yard behind me and a pond that I tended to, so we're okay.
So everybody, you had a packet of information here from Enterprise Fleet Management. So Matt will kind of put together a presentation, but going into this, so city staff was turned on to Enterprise Fleet Management by actually Daniela, our interim finance manager, who has used this program in multiple communities that she has worked for. It has been implemented over the past few years in numerous communities. You can see in the kind of here in the back, you know, City of La Crosse, Wausau, West Bend, Oak Creek, so on and so forth. So there are multiple communities that are utilizing similar programs, and basically Matt can kind of discuss really what the concept is, what we're kind of thinking. What we are looking for tonight at the end of the day is to authorize city staff, if you're so willing, to basically authorize us to participate in the program within the means that are set in our current budget, our 2022 budget. And you know, so there's a lot to kind of think here. Just when you think of the word lease, just to begin with, don't think of a traditional lease, okay? Just put that out of mind, because I think that's where everybody kind of thinks what's the, you know, what are we doing here? So I'll turn it over to Matt. You can kind of see some information there, and he can kind of spell out what they're looking at proposing and what we're looking at doing. So.
Great, thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Just introduce myself. My name is Matt Jastobiak. I'm a senior account executive for Enterprise in our fleet management division. we're a branch of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So if you've rented a car at airports or non-airport locations before.
Okay, this guy's audio coming in through this Zoom meeting is really, really bad. And my guess is that this is how public comments in the future, for those that do not wish to comply, will probably attend city council meetings. Hi, everyone. Are you enjoying this? I know I am. I can tell you this much. I thought we were on agenda item number 3, but I was wrong. What we just heard was the EMS billing and collection services, and now we are listening, or the council is listening, we're not, we're the naughty kids in class, to the Fleet Management Replacement Program with Enterprise Fleet Management. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they are. But immediately after this discussion will be the amendment to the face covering policy. And as we know, the members of the public that stood up and spoke tonight did so powerful, very powerful words being heard in the room tonight. So I can tell you, they are what I've observed so far is that the words were so powerful that nobody actually wants to get to action item agenda 4. And rightfully so, as they should be. So we will be monitoring this, and hopefully, the Jeepers, the audio is absolutely terrible. Now, Alan Early in the chat room and I were discussing while we were listening to the EMS. I'm not sure about that. And Alan, if you know, perhaps EMS is a private contract with the city. I'm not sure how the dynamics of that actually works. I can tell you this. What is taking place tonight in Ripon, Wisconsin is no different than what takes place on a regular schedule in your own backyard. And I encourage you to find your city's website. I encourage you to review the most recent meeting minutes that should be publicly available for you. And I encourage you to follow the agendas and see what is playing out in your own backyard, because these types of discussions are very important. And even the one that we tuned out of right now as they're talking is very important. I'm not exactly certain what it's about, but it concerns your hard-worked dollars and what happens to what you pay to your city. And of course, this is something that we should all be paying attention to. Flippin' Rob says, I'm in the back room already, and I'm waiting. I can tell you what, it is going to be very interesting to see what happens as we move through the agenda as soon as this web presentation is over, which is the Fleet Management Replacement Program, which, if included in the agenda tonight, is all of what he is speaking about, and as well as what we just heard the EMS speaking about too. Let's see if we can go past the LifeQuest stuff. We can probably see what they've added as attachments to the agenda tonight. But this is your own homework, okay? This is what you can do. And when we do these second Tuesdays and fourth Monday of the month broadcast, the Common Sense Council, you can start to tell us, oh, we have no attachments for this speaker tonight. So really, I have no idea what he's trying to sell to the city, but most likely he's already sold it given their track record. And that is an interesting track record to follow, that's for sure. But we'll tune back in as I anticipate this will be wrapping up shortly. And we will get to the moment in the agenda that has already been predicted, apparently brought back to us from the future, where the approval is expected to take place as the city council will probably vote unanimously. I don't know. Whoever the time travelers were didn't bring that information back to us, but we expect to see an amendment to the agenda. Now, if you observe this like a football game. This would get really, really interesting if anything less than that plays out when we come to action item number 4 tonight, the face covering policy. If they choose to not approve the amendment, then it is going to be even more interesting questions for us to try to get the answers to. Of course, not really easy to get answers from your city council. Not as easy as it should be or as easy as it used to be. So we'll tune back in and hope that this plays out the way we expect it will.
By moving your vehicle maintenance to local vendors and taxpayers with just your light duty vehicles, we're simply executing oil changes, tire rotations, very simple routine maintenance instead of the ball joints, the fuel pumps, the modulars, and so on and so forth. Each department will have the ability to right type and right size their fleet. So making sure that, DPW versus, admin versus Parks and Rec and sanitary will have their specific vehicles built for their application for safety and reliability. So no more hand-me-downs, no passing down old vehicles that have 80, 90,000 miles on them from the police department. It really just works better when you have each department specifically built for the application at hand. So taking all of that, what we've looked at, what we have found, and what our recommendations are, here's kind of the major findings that we have found. So by moving to a leased program where the city would actually pay for vehicles on a monthly basis and paying them down to own them at a specific time of either 1 year old up to 5 years old at time, and minimizing maintenance, improving fuel economy, and capitalizing on obviously the government buying power, but as well as the selling power of enterprise and how we're able to remarket your vehicles. Over the next 10 years, we see anywhere between $300,000 and $500,000 in savings, and simply by driving newer, healthier vehicles. So just to confirm, by operating newer and safer vehicles, we're going to drive savings compared to what the city's already spending on an average basis over the last 10 to 15 years. After the program is fully implemented, we see a sustainable savings of anywhere as low as $2,400 up to about $30,000 annually. So really what that means is Enterprise's program for the city of Ripon is going to save anywhere between $2,400 to $30,000 every single year compared to what the city is already spending today without Enterprise on a historical spend. And then just kind of breaking down real simple, hey, how does it work? So on page 2, you're going to see some bullets say, how does this really work? So we're going to order new vehicles with our government buying power. Enterprise is going to fund them for your taxpayers, so we really minimize the amount of cash that's outlaid. So what that means is that it allows the city to play catch up and replace more vehicles without spending more cash. We're also going to help you sell your current owned vehicles on your behalf, utilizing our sales channels and power that we do, that we've built for 6 years. And we're going to utilize that equity to put into the new vehicles and in the new program. Well, in doing so, over time, we're going to minimize maintenance spend on nearly 80% in fuel costs, about 20%. And then we're going to utilize our selling power on the new vehicles, anywhere between 1 year old vehicles to 5 year old vehicles, specific to the vehicle type, age, miles, and time of year. So those are kind of the main bullet points of really how this process works. On the bottom, I do have some supporting evidence. It's called a 10-year cash flow. So really the best way to read it is top to bottom, left to right, like a book. So it really kind of just sets the tone of what we're looking at, number of vehicles, the average age, the average cycle, how much maintenance we're spending on a per month, per vehicle basis at the top. And then looking at the middle part of the cash flow, that orange line is the sustainable spend that Ripon has seen over the last 5 to 6 years. So they're spending about $207,000 each year on buying new vehicles, fixing and filling up their current 26 vehicles. That does include the 10 squad cars from the police department. And then looking looking forward from 2022 on to 2031, we're going to see about a $330,000 net cash savings by implementing this process and program over the next 5 years. So we're not doing it all at once. We're not jumping all in with 26 vehicles. We're slowly replacing some of the older vehicles until they're completely pushed out and all the new vehicles are brought in. So with that, I will yield back with anyone has questions. I can certainly answer them. You do have some extra supporting evidence below as far as case studies and the technology platform that we provide to the city staff and mechanics and so on to operate with, and then just extra references to look at with contact information if need be.
So thank you. So just to kind of summarize what this means, basically the city is annually spending about about $108,000 a year buying squad cars. This is all light duty vehicles, nothing big, no big plow trucks. And we're spending money on the fuel, we're spending money on maintenance in-house. The enterprise fleet management system is not just buying and selling cars. This is a comprehensive program that starts at acquisition, goes to outfitting, finance. There's a fuel fleet management program that allows us to track our fuel economy far better than we currently do. And then also a maintenance agreement. They work with a local car dealership to take care of all maintenance. So our mechanics would no longer have to do oil changes and tire rotations. And from the standpoint of the age of these vehicles, all we would be doing on the majority of them is oil changes and tire rotations, because some of them would be on a schedule to flip out pretty quickly under a 1 to 2 year lease cycle. The idea then is using the city. Yep.
When you say local, is that a Ripon?
Yeah.
Okay.
We would have to identify that. I think but it would likely be the local dealership, right, for the maintenance work.
Yeah, we have multiple vendors in the area. I can always send a snip on our, we have a website that lists out all our maintenance vendors in the area. So we work with local mom and pop shops, franchise, and independent dealerships that have service garages. So, and your Goodyears, your Firestones, your Tires Plus, they're all preferred vendors.
So basically, we then are using our government buying power. So say, for example, an F-150. We can buy a Ford F-150 at a significantly lower price than the general population can because of government pricing. After a year or two, we only put, on average, annual miles, 7,600 miles on our vehicles. So if we have an F-150 that has 5,000 miles or 10,000, a year or two old, we can start looking at that and saying, okay, let's turn it back over. We've made lease payments on it. We bought it for $30,000, financed it, made, say, $5,000 worth of payments. Turn it around and sell it to the private sector for more than what we paid for it, okay? Therefore, what we end up receiving is the benefit of that sale. The whole idea here is to keep within our current spend in lease payments annually to save money down the road on maintenance costs and staff costs, because we aren't doing brake jobs, we aren't doing bigger work on vehicles because the vehicles are newer. We are driving vehicles that are not looking like junk, rusted out, and quite frankly have been inoperable in certain ways for years. And then we are taking certain vehicles and selling them for hopefully a profit that we will then take and set aside for capital improvement in the future. So when we, for example, if we buy 10 F-150s and after 2 years or so we sell them and we make $5,000 per vehicle on that in the private sale, we can take that $50,000 and set it aside for, say, a plow truck or a larger, so we're using our buying power as a local government to acquire vehicles and flip them quicker, to be profitable for us instead of running them into the ground and selling them after 7 to 10 years or 20 years for $1,000. Currently, the police squads are on a 7-year replacement schedule. That is incredibly high. We have squads that are well over 80, 90,000 that are in operation, miles. We have the ability within this program too to, like you mentioned, right-size the vehicle. So if we want to try a new vehicle, say for example the water department, instead of outfitting a big truck with a big back end toolbox, we could say go with the Transit, and we wouldn't be stuck with that vehicle for 20 years, okay? So that's sort of the comprehensive overview of this and why we brought it forward. I have checked with other communities that are using this. They love it because, quite frankly, it gets newer vehicles quicker, and it is making them money, and they would already be spending that money on buying vehicles that they then would traditionally run into the ground. This is a different concept. We have 26 vehicles. What we are asking is to work within the $96,000 in the current general fund budget and the $80-some thousand in the water budget to replace vehicles for 2022 to implement this program. So finding the right mix of what we turn in, we certainly aren't going to sell all 26 vehicles. I think staff, myself, we have come to the conclusion that that's not the direction we want to go. But we would be looking at, in year one, depending on the availability of vehicles, and that is the key in this process. Right now, vehicles are hard to come by. But within our government power of buying, we kind of can get priority, and if we can place orders starting now, we hope to have them in place by summer. So we've reviewed this with department heads. They certainly, Mike has the most vehicles in this group. Bill similarly has a lot of vehicles in the group. They can certainly provide their input about what they've seen as a benefit. But we're just looking for permission to join this effort and join this program and for 2022.
Questions, comments, motions? David.
All right, so you're saying, like, looking at that, we're going to buy 15 vehicles next year. And you're talking about selling them after 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So then next year, we're going to sell the 15 vehicles that we purchased in 2023, plus we're going to buy however many more.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to make money off the 15 vehicles.
Yes.
I can interject if that's okay. Each vehicle class is specific to its own life cycle. So the half-ton pickup truck's really in its own class in a sense of that would be the only vehicle type we would consult and look at recommending replacing at 1 year or 12 months old. I would say it's probably between 10 and 14 months is the sweet spot in the government sector for half-ton pickups. 3/4-ton pickup trucks are a little bit different. They may have a little bit more custom-built equipment on the back, so maybe a 24 to 36-month life cycle. And 1-ton chassis with service bodies or dump bodies, they could be anywhere between 4 and 5 years old. Just depends. So it's not, the city's not going to lease 15 vehicles today and sell them all 15 the next year. They may lease 15 today and maybe only sells 4 or 5 or 6. It just depends on the vehicle type and mix. And again, for police department vehicles, they will religiously be on a 3 to 4 year life cycle.
And we didn't do this in the past simply because perhaps it wasn't presented, we didn't know about it. I mean, it seems like a great thing for the city, but
Yeah, in reaching out to Oak Creek, the administrator there, they participate. I think Enterprise's clientele in the municipal market in Wisconsin has tripled over the last 2 years, since 2018. It's a completely foreign concept from what we do. We buy trucks outright, we buy vehicles outright, and we run them until they die and then sell them for whatever we can sell them for. And this is just a sort of a better way to get on a more healthy replacement cycle and start using our government buying capabilities to benefit potentially other long-term capital needs.
I move to approve the fleet management and placement program with Enterprise Fleet Management as presented, pending confirming that there are Ripon located facilities for maintenance.
And I can answer that right away. So Holman Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, and Chevy, as well as Cliffs Tire and Battery are all preferred vendors in a 5-mile radius from 54971.
Al?
I would order your government buy vehicles as quickly as you possibly can.
That's why we're here tonight.
The state of Wisconsin is notorious for expecting delivery of vehicles in January. It is currently almost November, and those vehicles have not even come close to being made yet. So get your order in now.
And you bring up a good point about that. That's one of the reasons why this is here. The other thing is, you know, the flexibility we need as staff is pretty broad because we don't know what's going to be available. I mean, we have worked on this, talked about this. We will start looking at this immediately. They probably already have, but if we can only get 10 vehicles, then we only start with 10. So, but we'll be within the budget. But, you know, 10 versus 3 or 4, you know, our fleet becomes a lot more, it's the nicer fleet. I mean, obviously, the only downside of this, is we will have to insure them. So there will be an increased insurance cost for newer vehicles. But generally speaking, they don't see that big of an increase in that. So it's really be offset by fuel economy, quite frankly, so.
Before I come to you, John, is there anyone that'd like to second Jolene's motion?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. John?
I can see that resale of these vehicles is really important, and I've seen city employees smoking in city vehicles. How is that going to affect resale? Do we have to change the handbook?
So yes, so the you know, and I think that's, you know, been addressed by department heads, and if there are cases of that, we do not allow that. We would make that explicitly clear again. At the end of the day, unlike certain, you know, leases where you get penalized for putting on too many miles or anything like this, we get penalized in this by not taking care of the vehicle that we're going to sell, okay? So if there are dents, scratches, smoke on the inside, it's going to impact our values in the resale market. So certainly I understand the concern there. So yes, there are policies regarding that will have to be followed. And we will ensure that the vehicles are taken care of because we want to maximize our dollar in the resale market.
Okay, thank you.
David?
All right, so what we're looking at is buying or leasing from Enterprise. And then even if we buy, you're going to buy them back? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's a leasing program.
It's a leasing program.
Okay, so it is a leasing program.
So we would lease the vehicle to the city of Ripon, and the city would pay for that vehicle for the extensive time that, you know, leadership, and we'll consult with leadership on recommendations of length of time, and leadership will make those final decisions. There's many different options the city leadership can entertain when a vehicle is sold or ready to be sold. You can either, you know, pay up, keep extending the lease out and to keep it. Let's say the resale market might not be as strong, so you can extend it out a little bit longer. You can pay off the remaining book value, so whatever the finance figure is on the books, you can pay it off to zero, and then you would own it outright, and then we would transfer title back to the city of Ripon, regardless of if it's a 2-year-old or 5-year-old vehicle. There's many different options. Otherwise, we would just continue to keep selling them. pay off the current vehicle, roll the proceeds from that sale to the new vehicle that's coming in. That will just keep paying down the program and funneling the equity back into your equipment fund.
So Dave makes a good question. In this, we don't take title, you keep title, but we'll have an agreement that the profit comes back to the city.
That is correct. So it's strictly Enterprise is acting as the bank for the city of Ripon. We factory order the vehicles on your behalf, handle the remarketing efforts on the back end, all the paperwork, title transfer, and you reap the benefits of the gains on the back end.
That's part of our agreement once we enter this fleet agreement. Correct?
Correct.
This will be in writing.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? One last time, any questions or comments before we take a vote? Hearing none, all those in favor of entering into the fleet management replacement program with Enterprise Fleet Management, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you, Matt, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, 1 second before we move on. Take care of this. And put the stuff back where it belongs here. All right, moving on. Next item is the amendment to the face coverings policy. Adam or Lud, would you like to start this?
I'll go ahead and start it. I think as pointed out by at least one of the speakers, this obviously has come before this body under public comment on at least 2 occasions. This COVID face covering policy, which was one of the most significant questions given to me to review regarding, and probably the most, I guess, pertinent question was, is this a policy or an ordinance? Clearly, it is a policy. And that's very clear on its face. It's very clear in the discussion. It was very clear in the debate that this is a policy that dealt directly with the city of Ripon and its employees. So the Common Council, as the legislative body of the city, has responsibilities that go beyond dealing with citizen representation. They also act as an employer. And in that capacity, it was brought to their attention that there are significant concerns and clearly medical evidence that wearing a mask can prevent the spread of disease if someone has contracted COVID. They were aware of that. They were given that information. They obviously live in the United States of America, so they know that this debate has been going on for some time. They had that information on September 14th when this matter was brought before them. Obviously, the other speaker is no longer here, that we can't talk directly to. He's decided to be elsewhere at this time in terms of our responding to his comments this evening. Their duty as an employer put them in a position to make a decision as to how to handle the situation of the COVID-19 outbreak that was certainly at a peak right about this time and had put the city of Ripon and its employees in a position to decide how are we going to respond. Clearly, requiring vaccination is something that communities have looked at. The city of Ripon and the Common Council were presented on the evening of September 14th a face covering policy, again, not an ordinance. And that policy presented to them an opportunity to determine how are they going to protect their employees. And in the discussion, and it was limited, there's no question about that. However, they had plenty of time based upon the fact that they had done their own research, they had done their own fact-finding, determined that yes, employees of any institution, never mind the city of Ripon, have the right to be safe in their work environment. So consequently, they adopted the policy. As part of the policy, they included a provision regarding the public. And clearly the public is important, and it is the reason they're here. They are elected public officials. We understand that, but they're also an employer. So balancing those two, they passed a policy that required people entering into the workspace to put on a mask, a mandate, if you will, and the sign was placed on the door. There was no debate that evening on whether it should be called a mandate or a recommendation. Under laws that have evolved in our country, and we inherited a lot of it from Europe, and the foundation of our country is what is known as common law. And the bottom line there is, what would a reasonable man do when presented with a factual situation where they could harm another individual? So that common law characteristic, well, what would a reasonable person do given the fact that they may be involved in spreading COVID to their coworkers or allowing the public to come in and spread COVID to their coworkers? They asked, in fact, mandated at that policy be put in place to be reasonable when you enter a workplace that city employees are working in, to put a mask on in an enclosed building. There are some exemptions. The exemptions are referenced. Everybody can read them. The challenge became, after reviewing the questions and talking to the city administrator, is how we were going to address the question of it being a public forum, open meetings law. Clearly, at that point in time, one could land on the concept that reasonable persons understand that if they enter a public meeting where all the public officials are wearing masks, they might wear a mask. That was a choice that they were given, and a reasonable person might make that choice. Again, the litigation is going to start as to who's reasonable and unreasonable in terms of those situations, and that's all out there. And I think we've all heard of the cases where parents are suing because schools did not enact a mask mandate, and their kids have now been infected with COVID because it was logical that children without vaccines in close proximity may spread COVID. In any event, not our problem, because we're not the school board. We are the Common Council. Our problem, however, is we must allow the public to participate in our meetings. So in talking to the city administrator and the mayor, the discussion was, you have the alternative, and you do this evening, because it is here, and again, the gentleman that left isn't here for the public debate of whether or not you're going to enact the amendment to the policy that you put in place September 14th. So the policy is here for discussion. We are recommending as staff that we would highly recommend to the public, and we would place that notice on the door, that they wear a mask when they enter into a public facility with closed space when the possibility of spreading COVID still exists, and that they wear a mask. The policy that you have in front of you this evening simply changes the last paragraph to read that it will be highly recommended. And that is the addition that has been placed in the paperwork that you have in front of you. The alternative would be to direct that staff would come up with an alternative to allow an individual who chose not to wear a mask and assert either a religious or a constitutional objection or whatever objection they might have to not participate in a meeting. That lawsuit has not been decided. We can guess how that might be decided, but rather than take the chance and to have to implement a Zoom alternative for those that asserted that privilege or right or whatever they want to classify it as. The alternative is to highly recommend that people of the public wear a mask when they come in to a public forum to participate, with the possibility of spreading COVID to one of the public officials. Again, reasonable man standard, you decide when you come in. And the whole question, the rest of the questions were, what are we going to do? How are you going to keep us from coming in the meeting? What are you going to do if we don't comply? Are you going to arrest us? Are you going to force us out of the building? Are you going to fine us? How much is the fine going to be? It was never the Common Council's intention to go down that road. Again, we all are in this together. We are all members and citizens of this city, some from outside the city, some in the city. We're all in it together. It's all about common sense, it's all about decency, and it's all about respect. We never intended that to happen. Chief of Police was in the back. He didn't arrest anybody. He didn't force anybody out the door. We were cordial, we were friendly. We allowed people to come in unmasked. So this evening, I guess you have the choice of directing staff to come up with an alternative. I am concerned about the open meetings nature of a mandate. This solves the problem without getting into further debate as to rights that people possess not to put on a mask to protect a fellow citizen. That's the debate that we will avoid by allowing the public to come in. They choose or not choose, we will highly recommend it. That sign will be changed on the door and we'll go forward. In the alternative, you could direct the staff to come up with a Zoom alternative to allow those who choose not to wear a mask to stay out of the meeting, to stay out of the building, and participate on Zoom, like we did the gentleman from Enterprise. So it could be arranged, but it seemed overkill when what we're adopting is a policy, not an ordinance. We're not looking to be punitive. We're looking to protect those who work for the city of Ripon and those who represent the city of Ripon. Any questions? Yes.
All right, right now we have a mask policy, right?
Policy.
And at no time does it say that you cannot enter a building. It doesn't say that you will be fined or arrested.
Correct.
So what's the problem?
The problem is on the off chance, okay? And when you talk to a lawyer, it's always that 1 in a million, slip and fall on your front door. Why you get insurance in a car. The chance that someone files that lawsuit to suggest that by us adopting a policy with a mask mandate, we somehow have censored that individual or not allowed that individual to participate in an open meeting.
How are we doing that? Because they can come in. They're in. They're here right now.
Clearly.
The chief of police is sitting there. The gentlemen are sitting over there without masks.
Clearly.
And they're welcome here without masks. All we're doing is asking them to wear a mask.
Clearly.
We're not.
You certainly, that was the third option, choose to do nothing. The clarification is obviously what we're going through in this country today, is that there are people misconstruing what the intent is, they're not understanding the purpose, and then they're turning it into some constitutional objection. The off chance that somebody would sue the city to say, I wanted to come to a public forum and I read this sign on the door that said it was mandated. I don't believe in a mask. I don't believe in a mask. So I didn't come into the building, and now I'm going to sue you because you violated the open meetings law.
Well, they can sue over this with it being highly encouraged.
Be a much more difficult case, trust me. That one, I can promise you, you will win. You will win the highly recommended case. The mandate, 1 in a million. Don't know. Don't know the odds. I can't. No lawyer's got a crystal ball.
Howard, you keep saying open meeting, open meeting, open meeting.
Yep.
What if this gets changed where it's recommended, not a requirement, somebody comes in and wants to license their dog and doesn't wear a mask?
We've got glass that protects us. We are going to allow the public to come in.
And that's
a
what
good
I want to
point.
clarify.
Thank you. You made my point. You made my
Just
point
an
for me.
open.
You made my point for me. We are not going to be in the business of denying anybody access to do public good business. And that's a good example. Somebody who doesn't believe in it, has a dog, and they got to license the dog. They come in, they license their dog. So this is a reasonable measure, and, you know, question, are we caving to anything? No, we're not caving to anything. We're using reasonable man standard. This defines the relationship we're going to have with the public going forward. You want to come in here? Please wear a mask. If you choose not to, you're still going to be able to conduct public business.
Yes.
And we will take precautions as we have.
Al?
I have to agree with Lud. However, this is a policy, not a mandate. Okay? This is a policy, not a mandate. That's important to understand. If you are a private employer, you can have a policy that states whatever you wish regarding masks. And your guests that come into your facility, you can do that. I can understand, though, however, a matter of a public building, public meetings, public opportunities for the community and community members to have input into the decisions made by this group or any other public group. But this mandate thing doesn't hold any water anywhere. It is not a mandate. It's a policy. People want to interpret it as a mandate. It is not a mandate. And with that, I would move the discussion along for approval of the addition of item number 9 of the policy, clearly stating members of the public are strongly encouraged to wear face coverings while in city-owned buildings and facilities and when interacting with city staff.
That motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
John?
Yeah, just to get some clarification on policy, this is a policy for city staff then also?
Yes.
So they can come in without a mask?
Their
staff could come to work
because it's
without a
because it's
mask?
our organization, there may be consequences for them not wearing a mask.
May be consequences?
Right, again, that's why it's a policy. And that will be enforced by your executive officer and ultimately by you if an employee who is covered by the employer's policy decides not to follow the policy.
So where does it say what the ramifications are?
It's in here, it may result
Employees who
from...
refuse to comply with this directive may be subject to discipline up to including termination. And then elected officials and
Pretty vague,
appointed
isn't it?
officials.
Or not? Is that standard wordage?
It's the same policy that was passed before, and then there are circumstances, as we discussed previously, where staff would not be required, including eating and drinking, communicating with someone who's deaf, you know, to confirm identity, to in enclosed space when no other person is present, when the job function, if it's not safe with the job function. So there are certain outs for face coverings and when they can be removed. We currently do not have, I think, a significant problem with staff compliance. I mean, I think most department heads have communicated this policy, which wouldn't change. And I think most are wearing masks when driving together, you know, only in the circumstances where there's an individual in a room or, you know, somebody's fully vaccinated and you know that, are people not wearing masks.
And that's in our policy. When working with others that are fully vaccinated, social distancing can be maintained, is in our policy.
Next question. When and what information do we use when we decide to stop the policy? Is this going to be for the rest of our lives or what?
Clearly not. It's obviously driven by current circumstances and certainly driven by factual evidence concerning the spread of the COVID-19 disease. So certainly, if those facts change, I would urge the Common Council and everybody associated herewith to do something different than what we currently have.
Do we need like 100% chance that nobody's ever going to get COVID, or what? At what point do we not wear a mask?
Yeah, and that's, again, a reasonable man's standard. There's obviously the flu, there's TB, there's all kinds of diseases in the world.
Yeah.
But the facts are that lots and lots and lots and lots of people died from COVID, and lots of people are hospitalized and permanently disabled because of this outbreak.
I understand that.
And so moving forward, let's pray that it will subside.
So we can have a policy, but we don't know the end, when it's going to ever end. What the number is, or the percentage is, and who decides that?
The Common Council.
Yeah, we can.
You can revisit every month.
We've done it before.
Yeah, and just did it again, and you'll do it again. So it's out there, John, and I'm with you. I hope. I don't enjoy wearing this.
Yeah.
I hope we get to that point. I'm on your team. I want this not to be.
We don't have a
situation.
definite number, like if the cases in Fond du Lac County get down to 5 a week.
No, we haven't chosen that. The staff won't choose that. You will decide that, but I don't know that medical evidence is out there for consideration. But that's your job. This is your policy. And so you will get an opportunity to review it. But to set an arbitrary number when there may be other strains, there may be, reoccurrence of different types of it, I don't know that. That's science, and I'm not a scientist.
And there's not a state mandate, state policy?
Regarding wearing a mask?
No, I believe
Statewide?
state agencies have masking policies for employers. So DNR, DOA, Department of Transportation,
Okay.
all of them have a requirement. They even wear them when they're doing Zoom calls. And they're the only one in the room, like at their home. I'm not lying to you.
Basically, it comes down to, we will decide when it's time to go away from this, whether it be a certain percentage of the population vaccinated, a certain number down in the state or county of cases and that, and go from there.
Absolutely.
How are we qualified to do that? I'm not a medical doctor.
Nor do I try to play one on TV.
So I don't know. I want to find an end to this mask policy.
Well, the goalpost
I
keeps
can't-
getting changed.
The what?
The goalpost keeps getting changed.
Yeah. So, and maybe I'm thinking too much ahead, but I can't decide when that number is there.
As none of us are scientists, we have to defer to the CDC, the State Department of Health, Fond du Lac County Health Department. We defer to them for their medical opinions.
They are doctors.
Some are.
And they're, okay.
Yes.
Some are.
So if they would come out tomorrow and say, it's clear,
If the CDC, state, county, the hospital networks around here said, we're perfectly happy that everyone's not wearing masks, then I will absolutely agree with that. I hate wearing this thing, but I wear it. It protects me, it protects my family, it protects the people around me.
yeah.
It protects city employees for me to wear this mask. I'm fully vaccinated. I'm not worried about me getting sick, but I can carry it from person to person if I get exposed to it.
Your opinion.
It's scientific fact. It's not an opinion. And as no one will be surprised, I disagree with this change. I think it's too early. I don't think it's too much to ask our citizens to wear masks. We do have the Zoom option. We have this lovely system installed this year for this purpose. But that is my opinion. Any other questions or comments?
I think going ahead with approving this amendment to make it strongly recommended is just going to save an enormous amount of time that's being wasted on an issue that is being used as a statement piece, proving right or wrong. And if this will allow people to feel like they can come in here without a mask and not have to repeat the same thing over and over and bring us back to this discussion every time, I think my personal opinion is that that is beneficial to not only the council but the community to use our time and our efforts toward other things.
Any other comments or discussion?
Well, I have a question more. The comments we've heard a couple times now, for the past couple weeks, centered around, maybe one, not agreeing with the way it was worded, but two, feeling like they weren't part of the process. And I know you mentioned that it was out there. But my question is, have we ever, as a council, and I'm new, had an informal session just open to the public, just to get more comments not related to our city council meetings? Is that like an option, just to make people feel like they're more part of the process? And I'm not, happy to signing us all up for another meeting. I'm not saying that, but I don't want people to feel like we're not being transparent and the general public is being left out. So I guess that's my question.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I think that's a very important one, given the speaker this evening that chose not to stay for the answer. Your job is to represent the people, but you're also an employer. And as Al pointed out, this is a policy, not a mandate. So the discussion, whether out in the community, people should not wear or should wear a mask in going into a store or going into a closed space, into a movie theater, we're not involved in that business. And we aren't attempting to be involved in that business. That was a decision this Common Council made. If the Common Council wants to have an open forum to talk about masks and vaccines, you can. But I just want it very clear to the people that have come to the podium. We did not, as a city or as a Common Council, enter into that arena. We simply said, we know it's out there, we're an employer, we're going to adopt a policy to recognize the risk to our employees and keep them safe. And then this evening, we're recognizing the possible argument that an individual wants to participate in the meeting. And again, this is your meeting, not their meeting. That's the other point I want to make. This meeting belongs to the Common Council. We allow public comment, and we allow them at times to participate in an issue that's on the agenda. But we never got to the issue of masks being required in the city of Ripon, or vaccines being required in the city of Ripon. We only had a policy that protected our employees and ultimately said to the public, gee, can you not wear a mask if you come into those settings? And now we're amending it to say, we just hope you don't wear a mask. Please don't, please wear a mask. Does that answer your question? I mean, you're getting into a debate that you can have. You can go to the library and ask people to come in and debate it. Maybe they'll wear a mask, maybe they won't. But that's bigger than your job. Your job is to represent the city on city issues that are on your agenda. Does that make sense? I think sometimes people, as council people, feel like, well, I represent everybody out there and I got to deal with every issue that comes forward. You deal with the agenda. If you want it on the agenda, you ask that it be placed on the agenda. And then this body debates it. But the idea that people come to the podium and say, I don't know what you people are doing. What are you doing? Why aren't you representing the people? You are representing the people. Look at our agenda, see what you like or don't like. If there's an issue that needs to be brought forward that's regarding an issue for the city to discuss, has jurisdiction, has some stake in it, we'll discuss it. Does that make sense? Thank you.
I think it's important to just note too that meeting agendas are posted in, we are required to post them in, in media and hard copy outside the building. That everything is posted as required for notice. Meeting minutes, once approved, are everything is there for the public to be informed in the required way that information needs to be distributed. So there's no one's being blindsided, the information is there if you choose to look for it.
Any further discussion? Questions, comments? Hearing none, the motion is to add line 9 to the current COVID-19 face coverings policy. All those in favor of adding this to the policy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Go to voice.
Do we want a roll call or?
Just for the sake of having it, yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Schrader,
Yes.
Mrs. Schatzinger,
Aye.
Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Gallops,
No.
Mrs. Kane,
Yes.
Mr. Gotsky,
Yes.
Mr. Split.
No.
Motion carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Next item on the agenda is resolution authorizing participation in the workforce relocation incentive program from Fond du Lac County. Adam.
So this was a recommendation at a previous council meeting, so we put together a resolution authorizing city staff or myself to participate in the Fond du Lac County Workforce Relocation Incentive Program. You can kind of read what it says. Essentially, we would be able to participate in that program that they just started recently that offers, through their grant funds, up to 50% reimbursement to the city for relocation of an employee to the city of Ripon. The things to note here are that it only is eligible to employees that we hire that relocate within the city of Ripon limits. So if somebody works.
I can tell you, I have watched a lot of city council meetings. I have never seen one as confusing as this. But nevertheless, the motion carried, as we knew from the future that it would. And they approved the amendment, which they published last Thursday morning or Friday evening. I have no idea. But you can clearly see the conundrum that has begun. I don't think this is anywhere close to finished. A lot of very interesting discussion. I can tell you this much. There is a split amongst the council. Not enough to make a majority vote, though. But I think it was supposed to be unanimous. I really do. Based on the fact that the agenda for tonight included in the meeting minutes included an already approved amendment before this vote even took place. So you tell me, was this all political theater? Was this all by design? Perhaps. I can tell you this much. Several of the people that actually stood in the room tonight and took that podium publicly were thrown under the bus multiple times by City Attorney Ludwart tonight. It really is amazing. Put a 1 in the chat room if you enjoyed this as much as I did. I don't think this discussion ends here. In fact, I think it's just beginning. We will return you back to the council meeting and let you watch the adjournment. Just by chance that something else pops up in the game of political theater. But I can tell you what, this has been an interesting show tonight, that's for sure. A show of lack of confusion. or perhaps confusion. 1111 from Sandy B, 1 from Go Kart Bob, 1.1 from Raider Champion, 1's across the board with American flags from My Life, 1 from Dark Wolf's Den Show. Rob Fry says, unfortunately, Ripon workers are still in jeopardy, right, Rob? I agree with you. What is that all about? Where does this policy make any sense? It doesn't. Apparently, Ripon's policy has the ability of determining whether or not you are susceptible for spreading COVID based on your difference of a civilian versus a city employee. Good for Ripon residents. This fight is not over, says Rob. I agree. We must continue to fight in all cities. I couldn't agree more. Tom Budis with a 1. Alva Yoder says, time to vote. Some people out of office. I couldn't agree more, Alva. I agree with you. I think it's time to ask for some people to just step down. Just step away. JoJo's with a 1. Alva Yoder with a 1. This policy actually makes absolutely no sense. And I honestly feel that this council tonight dug a deeper rabbit hole than they could have ever imagined. And we'll have to see where it goes on the second, where are we? Yeah, second Tuesday of the month as it continues. I can tell you, it is beyond belief. I've never witnessed anything like this before. Crazy, absolutely crazy stuff. So we will continue to listen to the following moments of the city council tonight and see just what kind of political theater they might continue to spin. Again, several fantastic quotes tonight from Ludwirtz, who said, I'm not a scientist, but I'm acting as such. I don't know. This is weird, wild stuff. There isn't any question about it. The rabbit hole goes deep, that's for sure. So let's tune in to the final remaining moments of this city council meeting and pay attention to what's happening in your own backyard, because these same meetings could actually be taking place right there. Shout out to Flippin' Rob, Orlando, and Preacher Tim, says Sandy V, with 100s across the board. Alan Early says, AJ, they walked the fine line of being caught off guard. Time for fire them all, or ask them to resign, Alan. Perhaps that's the right way to go at this point, to say, hey, mayor, hey, city administrator, hey, city attorney, walk off the job. Leave now. You don't really deserve to be here. But that's my opinion, and as far as I'm aware, I'm still entitled to it. So we'll see exactly if political theater will come yet back into the mix tonight, if there may be a message bestowed upon the citizens of Ripon when it comes to this policy. And keep aware of how the V word was entered into the discussion numerous points tonight. And I think that's where the hesitation came. I think this was supposed to be a full-on, across-the-board, unanimous vote. But thanks to the hard-working men and women of Ripon who stood up and spoke at the podium tonight, I think that they were not able to achieve that. A unanimous vote. So we'll listen to the last remaining moments.
I think Mike went to a cemeteries conference or got some information regarding when municipalities take over cemeteries. They should pass a ordinance that manages or dictates the management and operations of said cemetery. We looked in the ordinance and did not have such ordinance, and we probably took over the management of the cemeteries a long time ago. So Mike and Lud kind of tag team this, and it's in front of you today. So pretty simple.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Al, seconded by Paige. Any discussion? Motion is to approve the ordinance to create Title 14 cemeteries of municipal code. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That is approved. All right, one discussion item tonight. Budgets. Adam, floor is yours.
So I put a memo on your desk regarding the 2022 budget update, as well as there is a memo in your packet regarding health insurance. So just to kind of take a step back here, we had talked previously about the assessed value. I provided information about our assessed value. It increased by over $13 million. That impacts the mill rate drastically with our projected mill rate tax levy of 3.531 million. The mill rate would drop to $8.50, around that number, which is a 23-cent decrease from our previously projected $8.73. So the city does have flexibility within our levy limit to increase the tax levy and mill rate if we so choose. Health insurance, there was a surprise, so we are working toward that. You can read the memo. There was a 50% increase in the premiums as proposed by Anthem. That clearly is not a sustainable number. That is something we had talked about at the budget discussion regarding long-term sustainability of the health insurance program. We figured with an anticipated 10 to even 15% increase, we could get by another year. It came back at 50%. Our health insurance program is not sustainable based on that number, and changes will need to be made this year. We are working with insurance agents to look at proposals, and any proposal will need to fit within the current budget number, and that is the goal. I also have in there the idea of creating a review board and allowing some employee input and departmental input ahead of just administration or management in the health plans, something we haven't done before, but this affects our employees the most. And some changes will be coming, so their input, I think, is incredibly important because I'll just be honest, some morale issues with just the 50% increase and looking at how health insurance is being handled are apparent within our workforce, and so we need to address that, and we need to give them a voice because it quite frankly impacts them and their families more than it impacts a lot of people. So in terms of wages and benefits, we had originally proposed a 2% wage increase with the contributions along the same lines with health insurance as the police union. I would propose that we look at doing a uniform increase across the board of 3%, and then also the 100, 150, 200 health insurance contribution for all employees. So basically taking the same exact numbers that were used for the union contract and applying it to all city employees. And how do we pay for that? We have tons of flexibility within our current levy. If we increase our levy by $15,000, we can absorb that cost and increase taxes by 3 cents, basically per thousand. You can see it there. But in terms of fairness, in terms of morale, in terms of keeping pace with current paychecks and sort of the unknown of where health insurance will go, I feel it is important to readdress employee wages in this year's budget and look at a 3% increase for general employees. I know that is not something we discussed at our previous meeting, but I think in fairness to the entire staff, we need to look at that. And then also, I think we need to commit through an employee handbook to the contributions as laid out in the union contract for regular employees. There are a few other budget changes that have been made, very minimal, and we are certainly well within our 3.3% expenditure restraint limit for this year's budget. We can increase spending by $150,000-ish. If we added the 15,000, we would be, increasing spending by basically $19,000, $20,000 total. So well within the 3.3%. I just wanted to put that out there, see if there was any guidance or any appetite to revisit that 3% versus 2% for city employees. I know there are some unknowns. I ask for your patience as we make some decisions and bring forward a health insurance plan over the next couple weeks. We are under the gun. We don't have a lot of time, but I'm confident we will have something in the next couple weeks to look at, and the hope is it remains competitive and it doesn't impact our employees too much, because we will be asking them to pay more for it than they currently are. So in lieu of that, I think looking at the 3% would go a long way. And it's a minimal cost of around $13,000 to $15,000 all in. That is my update on the budget.
Any questions for Adam?
So you're looking for a motion for them to move
I
to
just
the
need,
3%?
well, so the other side of this is we've published summary budget, and there will be a public hearing on the 9th at 6:30. So, these changes at the last minute, can be included in the budget. It can change up until that night. We just need to communicate to staff and give them a little more predictability as to what is anticipated, what is put in the budget. In terms of where this goes, we simply can add it into the, there's a tab or a line item for city administrative expenses. We can put it in there and then distribute it across the budget as the year goes by. So there's no need to change a bunch of allocations. It's really quite simple with how we've designed the budget to import that 3% raise and allocate it accordingly throughout the year. So that's just an idea. Certainly I'm open to anything the council wants to do. Obviously, we're not presenting things in a comprehensive format. If we can have another meeting, we can talk about this. But I think within the flexibility of the levy limits, within the tax rate of actually reducing by 20 cents per thousand, we are in a position that we can make a small adjustment and take care of our employees with a 3% wage increase over a 2%, treat everybody fair across the board. I feel like our staff in general have earned that this year for July 28th and 29th alone. Okay, quite frankly, that alone merits a 3% raise, and us to consider this on top of the emotions and history regarding wages and benefits. I think 3% will hopefully go a long way and show that our staff, we're doing more to make sure we can, their ends can meet. So.
As you go through the health insurance process, be ready, because you're undoubtedly going to need to collect data from each of your employees electronically through FormFire.
Mm-hmm.
Also be very wary of open enrollment period. That is coming up in most organizations very, very quickly. So we are under the gun in a significant way.
Yep, and I will be frank and honest and upfront with all of you in looking at the health insurance plan and seeing that there was an anticipated potentially 15, 16%. We have engaged other agents and we have looked at other options. And so, quite frankly, our business is open right now for health insurance because we need answers. We don't have time. Quite frankly, yes, employees have to start making decisions about their spouse's plans, all of these things. I understand it. This is not the position I thought, nor was I guided to believe we would be in. And we are trying as fast as we can, hopefully by the end of this week, to have a good idea, talk with our employee review board, give them some options, look at some options, get some feedback so we can bring something to the council that says, here's our plan for 2022. We can't make any massive changes. The state health plan, things like that are out there. We missed open enrollment. This is way too late. I'm very disappointed on how this panned out. But all we can do now is sort of scramble and make the best decision for our employees in the city, and that's what we'll try to do.
And again, I'm not being critical.
Yeah, no, I get it.
All is just a couple of reminders about the process, and it never goes smoothly.
Yep.
And with that, I would make a motion to increase the percentage of wage increases for non-union employees to match the union employees at 3% with the same consideration for reimbursement for the employee portion of health insurance premiums.
Second.
Moved by Al, seconded by David. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of Al's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
As approved.
Thank you.
Adam,
We'll
I
move
wish you the
forward.
best of luck.
We will move forward with everything and full steam ahead for the 9th. Thank you.
Adam, if you do need to go to a farm fire situation, I know there are many employers in the area that have HR people that are very familiar in guiding employees through that.
Yep.
If that would be something that area employers could volunteer their resources to assist the city, I would encourage you to reach out.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. On to project updates and staff reports. Anything else, Adam?
I just want to wish Christine Smiha a happy retirement. She served 30 years at the Ripon Public Library and retired on 9/30 of 21. So shout out to her and her years of service to the city of Ripon. And then also a congratulations to Dwayne King for his retirement. He will be moving on from being the city's dog pound, dog catcher, kennel control officer, whatever you want to call him. He's been doing it since before I was born, I believe. So Dwayne also deserves a big shout out for the help he has provided in his service to the community and our furry friends.
You. Anything from Public Works?
Nothing here.
Water Department? EMS? Police? Nothing all around. All right. All I can say is respect your neighbors. Be nice. And I encourage everyone to get vaccinated. Any comments or future agenda items from council?
Well, I just had two things that quickly I think do pertain to, just being informed citizen, is that locally there are two events coming up, and one is November 3rd. It's titled Redistricting and its Impact on Voting. This is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Ripon and the Center for Politics and the People. I think it's important to note that our county board representative, Marty Farrell, is speaking on it, as well as our state senator, Joan Ballweg. And so this is something that's a local event to help keep us informed as voters. And then also, because I know as a city, we care about the rights of all, including
almost funny
disability
at this
rights.
point.
There is really, she is considered the mother of the disability rights movement. This is just an incredible
here we
figure
go.
that will be live
Passion.
speaking on a program put on by the college, by the Center for Politics and the People,
by the
and the Center for
college.
Diversity and Inclusion. This is November 10th, 6:30 p.m. Thank you to the local paper for posting these two. I bring these two things up because I think it really is pertinent to our work as public servants, these two issues.
All right. Anyone else? All right. At this time, I will seek a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Thank you.
Under Wisconsin statutes 19.851C.
Oh, let's
considering
be all
employment, promotion,
official
compensation,
now.
or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which this governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility.
New
The
verbiage
topic of tonight's
tonight.
meeting will be the city administrator's performance evaluation, as well as reviewing council minutes from the last closed session on July 26, 2021. Do I have
27.
such a motion?
2021. Wrong date.
To close session.
Closed session.
Oh, they're going to close session.
Made by Howard, seconded by David.
They
Any
have more
discussion?
to talk about
All
that
those
they
in favor,
don't want
say aye.
us to hear
Opposed?
tonight.
We will adjourn to closed session.
That's what closed session means. That they have more to talk about tonight than they want us to hear. Can you believe it? Oh my goodness, what an awesome common sense council show tonight. Taking no jabs to the limit where they have really gone to extremes. I can tell you that is what you are up against, no matter where you are, no matter what your town is. That's the reality that you're faced with. You're faced with these people who sit and make decisions for you. Unbelievable tonight to see how the game was played and to put the spotlight on Ripon, Wisconsin. I can tell you, I am looking forward to rewatching and recapping exactly what took place tonight because I have no clue. I can tell you this much. It's not like any regular council meeting I've ever witnessed before. I've never seen an approved agenda that has appeared before a council meeting vote, regardless of what that vote may be. The only thing that would have really made this story interesting would have been if the council would have not approved the amendment. That would have been really interesting. But I do take my top hats off to all of you who participated in our Common Sense Council observation of October 25th tonight. All of you, My Life DIY, Nikki Rabbit in the chat room tonight. It's been a while, Nikki, since you've been active in our chat, so it's great to see you, along with Chris Stanke tonight. I bet the masks come off in closed session. I think you're right, Chris. I bet they do too. I think you're absolutely right. As Rob pointed out, masks for thee, but not for me. Terry Taggart says, secret meeting, see something, say something. Right? Perhaps we'll hear what actually took place. JJ, thanking for the stream. JJ, thank you for being here tonight. Sandy B, thank you for being here, along with JoJo's and Michael Fontaine. I can tell you, the conversation is not over. The drama does not end here. It only begins. If you haven't done so already, please hop on over to the riponrabbithole.com. Sign up for your exclusive Backstage Pass. It's going to give you unfiltered access down the rabbit hole to where the conversation continues. And I can tell you, the conversation will continue. There is no end to this debate tonight. That is clear. Thanks to all of our patriots, our Ripon Rabbits that stood at the podium tonight with powerful words for that council. Thanks to Tim Backliner, who delivered an absolutely amazing 5 minutes of speech. Thanks to Orlando, who stood up and made sure his voice was recorded. And of course, thanks to Rob Wichow, who is our Ripon Rabbit Rob. I can tell you this much. It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. I'm AJ, the Ripon Rabbit. Until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.